Let's get to your top stories. So far, no invasion out there. We're watching diligently. Russia's not moving into Ukraine. Meantime, back here at home, Chris Cuomo's assault allegations. Yeah, Fredo's in bigger trouble than we thought. And America says investigate Hillary Clinton. That's where we begin tonight. Court filing from special counsel John Durham alleges that Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign paid a tech firm to spy on Trump Tower and eventually the White House servers to create a link between Donald Trump and Russia, a false link. Joining me now is President Donald Trump's former campaign manager and author of a new book, Political Prisoner, Persecuted, Prosecuted, but Not Silenced, Paul Manafort. Mr. Manafort, welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show, sir. We'll get to your book here in a moment. But first, I want to discuss the court filing alleging Clinton spied on then candidate Trump and then President Trump. New poll shows 3 out of 4 Americans, including 66% of Democrats, want her investigated for her role in the Trump-Russia scandal. What say you?
Well, I think that's exactly what should be done, and I hope, Chris, that Mr. Durham is setting the predicate for doing exactly that. We've known from 2016 that the Clinton campaign, the Democratic National Committee, and parts of the Obama administration were surveilling us. They were creating lies and leaking them to the press and creating a false agenda. Durham finally is, through his investigation, beginning to uncover the facts and the evidence proving this. And if you want to know what the Democrats are doing, just look at what they accuse Republicans of doing, because this is exactly what's happening here. There was Russian collusion in 2016, but the Russian collusion was between the Democratic campaign, Fusion GPS hired by the Clinton campaign, and Igor Davchenko, who Mr. Durham is investigating, who actually went to Russia and got Russians to create false information that ultimately became the Steele dossier. And the whole predicate of the Mueller investigation was based on the Steele dossier, the black ledger against me, which was proven to be false, and the links between the Trump servers and Russia, which now has been proven again to be a fabricated lie generated by the Clinton campaign.
Media Research Center has put out an analysis, found that ABC, CBS, NBC evening newscasts alone spent a shocking 2,634 minutes covering the fake investigations into Trump-Russia collusion through July 20th of 2019. That's nearly 1/5 of all of their Trump coverage. Now, I spoke with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia on my radio show today. Listen to this.
This is something that many of us have known the entire time, that he was spied on in Trump Tower. But even worse, they hacked into the White House and spied on the President of the United States. They don't want to cover this story because they have to admit they lied and they have to admit they're wrong. But here it goes further, Chris. I think freedom of press is such a gift and a blessing in America, but it's not the freedom to lie.
Mr. Manafort, aside from their customary left-wing bias, why do you think the left-wing media refuses to cover this bombshell? Could it be that Durham discovered some of them in the press had knowledge that this investigation was fake the entire time?
Well, I think that's right. I also think they just don't know how to deal with evidence and facts. I mean, they built the whole Russian collusion hoax on anonymous tips, government sources that were never identified, the facts which people like Adam Schiff said he had seen conclusive evidence on, which were shown to be totally untrue. Whereas Durham is giving us the evidence. He's putting it out there. He's showing the basis for the indictments that he's making. And frankly, when you start tracing, even though it's taken him a long time to get here, what he is doing, it certainly doesn't look like it's the end of the investigation. It looks like there is other things that he's going to be leading towards, and it's going to continue to show the linkage between the Clinton campaign and the myriad of lawyers and consultants that they hired to spy on and create false narratives about the Trump campaign, about President Trump, and about me. What I found incredible is they actually...
No, go ahead, sir, go ahead. What did you say?
I said what I found really incredible is they continued on the server attempts to infiltrate the White House. I mean, it just shows you the degree to which they were committed to bringing down a government. So when you see what they talk about, on January 6th, we had a real conspiracy to bring down the government. But it was not January 6th. It was what they were doing in 2016, 17, 18, and 19.
Let's turn to your book. You are one of the most high-profile examples of the left's assault on the allies of former President Trump. They accused you of conspiring with Russia while you worked with Ukraine, among other things. That work, though, dates back to 2003. But no one seemed to bat an eyelash until you were associated with President Trump. Doesn't that suggest that your prosecution was politically motivated?
From day one, my prosecution was geared towards getting me to uncover something about candidate Trump and then President Trump. I was a means to an end, and what caused them to bring on this incredible number of charges against me was because they couldn't make any progress with me. In fact, anybody who is even just a reader of newspapers in Europe would see that during the time I was involved in Ukraine, Ukraine made the changes necessary to become part of the European Union, which they now are an associate member of. The exact opposite of the presentation that was made through the lies and the misinformation that was spread in 2016 and 17 against me, and which was, again, the basis for my indictment.
Well, I want to focus on your experience with what I call permanent Washington, what Rush Limbaugh called the deep state, the fourth branch of unelected government. Describe for me these interrogation sessions. Were they after the truth from you, or were they after President Trump?
They were after President Trump, and the truth was the farthest thing from their mind. And worse, they had these narratives in their own mind. And I talk about this in my book. They had these narratives which were not connected to reality. And when I explained to them the real facts, which I talk about in my book, they just ignored it and moved on. And then when I continued to debunk their false theories, they charged me with more things and claimed that I was lying to them. The only lie there was no lies I was telling. The only lies that were being told in that room were the narratives that they were trying to force me to give them, which I wouldn't do.
You were convicted of 5 counts tax fraud, 1 count of failure to file a report of foreign bank financial accounts, and 2 counts of bank fraud. Without your brief association with President Trump, do you think these charges ever get brought?
No, not only would they never have gotten brought, the charges themselves were dealt with previous to the special counsel and were dismissed as not relevant and appropriate for bringing against me. And
Paul
we'll talk
Manafort,
about
sir,
that.
thank you very much. Good luck with good luck with the book, sir, and keep us posted on how it's going, and we'll get you back on soon. His book, Political Prisoner: Persecuted, Prosecuted, but Not Silenced, available for pre-order now on Amazon.